Snow fell in slow, deliberate spirals, each flake reflecting the dull light of Nythra-IV's dying sun. The planet was a graveyard of white silence, where breath froze before it left the lungs and sound seemed too afraid to travel. Through that quiet, the thrum of engines shattered the stillness. Dropships descended, carving gashes of heat into the frozen wasteland, their hulls glowing red against the storm clouds. Inside them waited the Karthan Legion, elite soldiers of the unified Concord, creatures carved from iron and arrogance. They had come to finish the war the humans refused to stop fighting. The lead transport landed with a hiss. Massive figures disembarked, armor glinting with refracted light. The Karthan's commander, a scaled brute named Vorokesh, surveyed the desolation with narrowed eyes. "Primitive world," he muttered, his voice vibrating through his helmet's translator. "And primitive enemies." His soldiers laughed, the sound a coarse metallic grind. A younger legionnaire held up a captured human rifle, its barrel frostbitten, its weight awkward in his clawed hands. "These are the weapons of Earth's daughters," he sneered. "Powder and slugs. Toys." Vorokesh's eyes glowed amber behind his visor. "They still think steel can challenge plasma. Let them believe their myths." He gestured to the frozen horizon. "We'll end their delusion tonight." Unseen beyond the ridge, Sergeant Lira Vance watched the scene unfold through the scope of her rifle. Her position was nothing more than a mound of snow and woven camouflage, but beneath that shell lay the last functioning human on Nythra-IV. She adjusted her breath, counting heartbeats, aligning her pulse with the rhythm of the wind. Every movement was measured, every thought pared down to survival and precision. Her gloved finger rested lightly on the trigger guard, not from hesitation but control. 3 days ago, Lira's unit, Recon Delta, had been ambushed during a scouting operation. The Karthans struck fast, their plasma weapons cutting through ice and armor alike. The survivors fled, leaving trails of red across the snow. Only she had endured. She wasn't the strongest or the fastest, but she understood patience, the art of letting time fight for her. The aliens believed humans were all the same. Rash, emotional, unpredictable. They were wrong about her. Through her scope, Lira studied their posture, their formation, the way they carried their weapons. Advanced species, she thought, but slaves to pattern. The Karthans spread out in a standard recon grid, predictable to anyone who'd faced them before. Her breath fogged faintly inside her mask. A small comfort, proof she still existed. The storm intensified. Wind howled across the plain, tugging at her ghillie suit until the strands froze into the snow itself. She welcomed the cold. It masked her heat signature and numbed her hunger. Below, the Karthans began erecting a temporary command post, driving spikes into the ice to anchor force field barriers. Their laughter drifted upward, distorted by the storm. "Human tech is a joke," one said, voice thick with contempt. "Even their snipers are extinct." Lyra's lips barely moved. Not yet. She shifted her aim toward the source of the voice, adjusting her scope to compensate for wind drift. Her rifle, Whisper, was an old design by Concord standards, an electromagnetic coil gun modified for kinetic rounds. Crude, they called it, but crude worked. Energy weapons left trails, kinetic rounds left questions. She ran a finger along the weapon's chassis, feeling the hum of charged coils beneath the casing. The faint vibration steadied her heartbeat. Her visor displayed range data, 1,100 meters. The target's armor gleamed faintly through the haze. A clean shot, but she waited. Patience was not hesitation. It was dominance over impulse. Her old instructor's voice echoed in memory. Captain Wren's rasping whisper during training. "The galaxy fights with fire. You'll fight with silence." The Karthans continued mocking, tossing rifles into a pile and igniting them with a plasma torch. Fire flared bright in the snowstorm, the smell of burning polymer and metal drifting up toward her. One soldier held up the melted barrel, shaking it like a trophy. "Woman weapons," he said again, and laughter followed. That word, woman, was meant as insult. To them, Femininity was weakness, fragility, excess empathy. They didn't understand that empathy sharpened precision. She felt none of their hatred, only the cold certainty that this moment had meaning. She exhaled slowly. The reticle aligned with the leader's visor. Her finger tightened by degrees, 1, 2, until resistance broke. The rifle released a muted thrum, no brighter than a sigh. The recoil nudged her shoulder like a heartbeat. Through her scope, she watched the kinetic dart travel invisible through the storm. A sliver of dense tungsten accelerated beyond sound. It struck Vorokesh's helmet dead center. For a fraction of a second, nothing happened. Then the visor imploded inward, and the alien's massive form folded to the ground. The sound reached them after, the distant, hollow crack of impact. The laughter stopped. Confusion spread like contagion. The remaining soldiers turned in unison, scanning the horizon. Their armor sensors blinked erratic readings. The storm scattered their signal pulses. Lira lowered her rifle and let the silence reclaim its throne. She didn't smile, didn't breathe in triumph. The shot was necessary, nothing more. Her scope glowed with residual heat. She powered it down and let the ice reclaim it too. Below, panic began to simmer. The Legion had lost their commander without warning, to a weapon they deemed obsolete. She knew the patterns of fear. It would start with shouting, orders to form perimeter to find the invisible threat. Then would come the drones, the scanning beams, the desperate plasma volleys into empty snow. She had seen it before on half a dozen worlds. How arrogance turned to disbelief, disbelief to fear. Lira adjusted her position, dragging her rifle a few centimeters deeper into the snow, reorienting toward the next target. She marked a lieutenant, issuing frantic commands. Her HUD tagged him automatically. Another heartbeat, another calculation, but she didn't fire yet. Instead, she listened to the Legion's confusion echo through the blizzard. The sound was music, discordant, chaotic, alive. "You wanted to see what a woman's weapon could do," she murmured into the storm. The wind answered, howling approval across the frozen plain. She waited, patient as the ice, for the next breath, the next mistake, the next chance to remind the galaxy what humans could become when cornered. The storm thickened around her, a white curtain drawn across the battlefield. Below, fear began to take shape, and Lira Vance, the last sniper of Nythra-IV, became nothing more than another ghost in the snow, watching, waiting, and preparing her next shot. The first scream was mechanical. A sharp, stuttering sound filtered through a comlink before the channel went dead. The Karthans froze in confusion, scanning the storm that had swallowed their commander. The blizzard thickened, scattering their sensors, dissolving formation lines into chaos. The alien lieutenant bellowed orders, his voice vibrating across open frequencies. "Triangulate the shot. Find her." Their scanners pulsed infrared beams into the snow, seeking the signature of heat, the flicker of movement, but the readings returned as nothing more than endless cold. From her position beneath an ice ridge, Lira listened to their panic without satisfaction. She'd seen this pattern unfold before. The disbelief, the frantic overconfidence dissolving into anger. Through her scope, she tracked their movements, noting which soldiers took cover and which exposed themselves in arrogance. Each gesture revealed something about their fear, their instinct. They were trained for direct combat, not ghosts in the wind. The wind shifted east, carrying with it the low hum of an aerial drone. Lira adjusted her scope, spotting the faint blue glow of its scanning beam slicing through the snow. Her breath steadied. The drone passed overhead, its sensor arrays sweeping the ground, but she had already prepared for that. Her ghillie suit was layered with heat-dampening fibers and a shell over frozen ice. Her heartbeat slowed to half its resting rate. To the drone's sensors, she was no more alive than the frost. Negative contact, one soldier reported through static. No life signatures within 200 meters. "Then she's further out," the lieutenant growled. "Expand the search pattern. She cannot hide forever." Lira's lips curved faintly beneath her frost-coated mask. Forever wasn't the point. She didn't need eternity, just precision. Her fingers brushed over the magazine, confirming the weight of her remaining rounds. Each one mattered. Each one had a name. Her crosshairs settled on the communications officer crouched near a portable uplink. The alien's hands shook as he recalibrated frequencies, his breathing quickening. The antenna glowed faintly as it powered up, transmitting distress signals to orbit. She exhaled. The rifle thrummed softly, a whisper beneath the storm. The dart struck the uplink first, shattering the transmitter before punching through the officer's chest plate. Sparks flared, then faded into the snow. 2 kills. 2 messages. The remaining soldiers erupted into motion, shouting, firing plasma bolts blindly into the storm. The energy discharges illuminated their armor for brief moments, turning the blizzard into a strobe of blue and white. Each shot carved a momentary corridor of light that revealed their positions, and each time, Lira marked them, memorizing their coordinates. She didn't waste ammunition. Patience was her only ally now. A memory flickered unbidden, a humid training range on Earth, Captain Wren pacing behind her. "You're not fighting their weapons, Lira," he had said. "You're fighting their certainty." Every creature that believes itself invincible eventually makes a noise when it's afraid. Listen for it. She thought it poetic nonsense at the time. Now it was doctrine. The Karthans were making plenty of noise. "Keep moving," the lieutenant roared. "She's not a ghost. She's human." Lyra smiled beneath the mask. Exactly, she thought. Humans didn't need to be ghosts. They just needed to be better at waiting. Through her scope, she found the lieutenant at last. A hulking figure wrapped in armor plated with alloy and arrogance. His head twitched in constant movement, scanning, calculating. His armor's shield emitter pulsed like a heartbeat. She calculated range, wind speed, and gravitational drift. The shot required compensation, 3 millimeters for crosswind, a fraction of a second delay to account for the magnetized field distortion. She waited for him to turn, for the faint seam between armor segments to expose itself. Patience again. Her rifle's coils vibrated faintly as she adjusted the power regulator. The capacitor hummed to life, ready for another discharge. She lined up the shot and froze. The lieutenant dropped to one knee, placing a stabilizer beacon in the snow. Around him, a spherical shimmer expanded, an adaptive energy field that rippled like glass. It distorted her scope's view, bending light and range data. She cursed softly. Too much interference. Her shot would miss. She eased her finger away from the trigger. There would be another chance. Instead, she scanned left, searching for weakness. 2 soldiers broke formation, moving toward the ridge she had abandoned an hour ago. Good. Let them hunt shadows. The wind carried their voices, low, tense, uncertain. "Why can't we see her?" one asked. "Because she's dead already," another muttered, forcing bravado into his tone. "This is just the storm playing tricks." The first soldier turned his visor toward the storm's heart. "Then why do we keep finding bodies?" Lyra adjusted her aim. A faint glint of armor caught her attention, a careless reflection off a rifle scope. That was all she needed. She squeezed the trigger. The sound of impact was lost to the storm, but the sudden stillness that followed told her everything. The surviving soldier began shouting incoherently, firing plasma bursts into empty space. Fear spread faster than any contagion. Lyra watched it move through them, altering formation patterns, breaking discipline. What began as a confident advance had devolved into scattered movement and shouted contradictions. The lieutenant barked commands that went ignored. Lyra whispered into her comm recorder, logging coordinates and emotional responses. Discipline breakdown at 30%. Morale collapse imminent. Second commander likely to assume control in 10 minutes. Her voice was calm, clinical. She transmitted the data to a satellite drone still orbiting above the storm, a remnant of human tech left behind. Even now, every kill, every observation mattered. Humanity needed evidence that it could still terrify the galaxy. Below, the Karthans began retreating toward their landing zone. Their arrogance had evaporated, replaced by the primal instinct to survive. Lyra adjusted her rifle once more, sighting the lieutenant as he tried to rally his troops. Snow clung to his armor. His voice cracked as he shouted into the wind. "Show yourself, coward!" Lyra almost laughed. He wanted face to blame. He wanted war to make sense. But war was never sense. It was precision and timing. She waited until his hand rose, signaling retreat. Then she whispered, "Permission granted." Her rifle thrummed once more, the sound almost tender. The dart found its mark between the plates of his armor. The lieutenant staggered forward, collapsing to one knee, his hands still raised in futile command. The storm howled louder, swallowing his final words. The soldiers ran. Lyra lowered her rifle and watched the survivors vanish into the white. For the first time in hours, she allowed herself to breathe deeply. The scent of ozone and snow filled her lungs. They would return. They always did. And next time, they'd come with heavier armor, stronger fields, more confidence. She brushed frost from her rifle's chamber, eyes narrowing as she adjusted the power regulator. "Then we switched to armor-piercing rounds," she murmured. The rifle hummed in agreement, cold and patient, waiting for the storm to begin again. The storm thinned with the coming dawn, revealing the aftermath of the night's slaughter. Scattered across the frozen plain lay fragments of alien armor and blackened plasma, casings half buried in snow. The silence was heavier now, carrying the weight of realization. The Karthan Legion, once a name spoken with fear across the stars, had been reduced to confusion and retreat. Lyra watched them through her scope, tracking their dwindling movements, her gloved finger poised but unmoving. Killing was never the purpose. Understanding was. Every shot she took rewrote the hierarchy of power in the galaxy. Her visor flickered with a low battery warning, its glow faint against the pale light. She dismissed it. Power wasn't what kept her alive. Patience did. Discipline did. Humanity's gift wasn't superior technology. It was the refusal to surrender when logic demanded it. Through the lens, she saw one of the surviving soldiers kneeling beside the lieutenant's fallen body. His claws trembled as he reached for the insignia plate on the corpse's chest, whispering words she couldn't hear. They had never expected to fear a single human. That ignorance had killed them. Lyra shifted her position, her joints aching from the cold. She had lain prone for hours, her muscles stiff beneath the layers of camouflage and frost. She rolled her shoulders once, recalibrated the rifle's scope, and adjusted the chamber. A metallic click echoed faintly as she slid in a new round. One heavier, longer, its casing dull silver against the snow. Armor-piercing ammunition. The last resort. Down below, the survivors regrouped near the wreckage of a dropship. Their energy barriers flickered weakly, damaged from the storm and their own panic fire. They were fewer now, half their original number, but still dangerous. Even wounded predators could bite. Lyra steadied her breathing, counting heartbeats again. She was no longer simply hunting them. She was teaching them what it meant to be hunted. Her mind slipped briefly to memories of home. Earth's dry wind across desert ranges, the scent of oil and metal from the armory, Captain Wren's hand resting on her shoulder after her first confirmed hit. Precision isn't about killing, he had said. It's about message. Every bullet carries a story. Make sure they read it right. She wondered if he had known then that she would become the story itself. Through her scope, the world narrowed to a single image. The last ranking Karthan officer barking orders, his armor cracked, his face hidden behind a frost-streaked visor. Around him, soldiers dragged their wounded toward the ship, desperate to regroup. Their voices were hoarse, their movements erratic. Fear was visible in their posture now, shoulders hunched, heads darting toward every noise. Lyra could almost feel their confusion, the way it knotted inside them like static. She adjusted for wind again, her gloved fingers moving with ritual precision. The rifle hummed, coils warming, capacitors charging. She let her body sink into the rhythm of the storm. Exhale. Align. Wait. Her crosshairs steadied on the officer's chest. A pulse of static crossed her comm link. Feedback from the orbiting relay drone. Faint but distinct. She ignored it. Her focus remained absolute. The snow slowed, time folded inward, and for a moment, there was nothing but her and the target. The trigger broke cleanly. The sound vanished into the wind. A heartbeat later, the officer's chest plate erupted outward, the force of the kinetic impact flinging him backward into the snow. The surviving Karthans froze, every instinct screaming flight. One soldier raised his weapon toward the ridge, firing blindly until his plasma cell overheated. Another fell to his knees beside the body, disbelief written in the rigid set of his limbs. Lira whispered softly, "That's 3. Her rifle clicked empty. She ejected the spent magazine and reached for another, only to find her pouch nearly bare. 3 rounds left. Enough. She shifted her aim toward the transport. The ship's engines flared, struggling against the freezing air, blue light rippling beneath its wings. They were preparing to escape. She couldn't allow that. Word would spread soon enough, but not yet. Not before the lesson was complete. She sighted the first engine housing, calculating the shot's trajectory through turbulent wind. The dart tore through the intake port, igniting a burst of fire and vapor. The explosion threw debris into the storm, knocking nearby soldiers to the ground. The ship tilted, its systems sparking in protest. Lira fired again, striking the secondary thruster. Flames flared bright orange against the white horizon. The ship's stabilizers failed, and it collapsed onto the ice with a grinding roar. Smoke drifted upward, dark and thick. The last few Karthans staggered from the wreck, their movements desperate. One tried to lift a plasma rifle, but his hands shook too violently. He screamed something guttural and fell silent, consumed by exhaustion or despair. Lira lowered her weapon slowly, the muscles in her arms trembling. The field was quiet again. For a long moment, she lay still, letting the wind cool the barrel of her rifle. The storm had become a whisper now, brushing snow across fallen armor like a shroud. It felt almost reverent. Lira unlatched her mask, breathing in the air directly for the first time in hours. It tasted of iron and frost. She stood, her movements deliberate, joints creaking with cold. The ghillie suit peeled away bits of ice as she moved toward the wreck. Her boots left shallow prints, temporary marks in a temporary world. The silence followed her, dense and absolute. At the fallen officer's body, she knelt and pried open the armor's chest plate, retrieving a small data core embedded beneath the plating. Its surface flickered with faint light. The Legion's logs, tactical readouts, and transmission codes, proof of everything that had happened here. She slipped it into her pouch. Evidence mattered more than vengeance. Humanity needed witnesses, even if they came in the form of machines. Her comm unit crackled again, a faint transmission cutting through static. Recon Delta, this is Command Relay 2. Do you copy? Lira hesitated before responding. Her voice emerged rough, distant. This is Sergeant Lira Vance. Objective complete. The Legion won't be reporting home. There was a pause, then static-filled words. Understood, Sergeant. Extraction en route. Stay alive. She looked across the battlefield. White, endless, littered with remnants of pride. Copy that, she said softly, switching to armor-piercing diplomacy. She turned toward the horizon, where the faint gleam of a rising sun painted the snow in pale gold. The storm was ending, but the war was not. Her rifle hung at her side, empty yet alive with purpose. Somewhere beyond the cold sky, the Concord would hear what had happened on Nythra-IV. And when they came looking for answers, she would be waiting. Because patience was the last weapon they had not yet learned to fear.